Greetings and welcome. My name is Carol Cooper, and I'm the downtown pastor of First United Methodist Church.
And my name's Todd Nelson. I'm the senior pastor at First United Methodist Church. Yeah.
In Lexington, Kentucky.
In Lexington, Kentucky. Yeah, that's important. There's a lot of First United Methodist churches around. Yeah.
That's true. Well, we are coming to you today because our Advent sermon series is entitled Worth the Wait. We are exploring the gifts given to us through Jesus as we await Jesus's return and the culmination of the earthly kingdom and the heavenly kingdom coming together as one. We will invite you to join us each Sunday during the Advent season as we explore these gifts and their implications in our lives.
And what we wanted to do in this forum is to supplement. We're not going to rehash the Sunday sermons. You're not going to ever hear the Sunday sermons twice by any stretch. But we want to supplement it by exploring how to wait. If something's worth the wait, then we need to know how to wait. And so without making you wait any further, let's just get right into it. I mean, we spend our lives waiting, and we are so good at waiting, aren't we, Carol?
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I'm looking for a little help here.
Yeah. Not the best at waiting. Yeah.
But it's everywhere. We wait in traffic. We wait, just about anywhere we go that we have to physically wait. And I guess, is it worth the wait is the question,
Yeah. Because what is worth waiting for?
Yeah. What's the longest you've waited at a restaurant to be seated?
Yeah, I'm thinking 30 to 45 minutes. If it's somewhere,
I'm shaking my head if you're not watching this. 30 to 45 minutes.
If it's somewhere that, like, if we're on vacation somewhere and it's a restaurant we've heard, you need to go here. I'm trying to think. I mean, I probably waited longer than that, and I just don't remember. San Francisco on our honeymoon. If we didn't have a reservation, we probably were willing to wait a little bit longer. But the other night we pulled up at Chili's and they told us 30 minutes, and I was like, yeah, not worth it. See you later.
Yeah. And I think that is so the key, that if it's this amazing meal, you'd be like, yeah, I could wait 30, 45 minutes or even an hour. But if you pull up in Chick-fil-A and it takes you more than 15 minutes, I mean, you're pulling your hair out at that point.
Yeah. I expect it quick there.
Mm-hmm.
So what about you?
4 hours. Yeah, 4 hours. Yeah, I'm not proud of it.
Was it worth it?
Not for everybody in our party. It was not worth it. It was my parents' 25th wedding anniversary, and we thought, we'll do something really nice. We'll take them to the Boathouse, Montgomery Inn in Cincinnati. And we got there, and we knew it was going to be a wait. But they said 2 hours. Like, no problem. We can walk alongside the river. The Ohio River is beautiful. It's a great day. I mean, their anniversary is in July. Some of it was warm. It was dry. So we did that for about an hour. Came back, got some hors d'oeuvres, and so approached the 2 hours. And like, just another half hour. And they did that for 2 more hours. And finally, you can't do this anymore. But finally, my wife Susan had enough. She went and grabbed the maitre d' by the arm. You cannot do that anymore.
No, not allowed to do that.
No, not allowed to do that. But she did. She grabbed the maitre d' by the arm, and she's like, "We have been waiting for 4 hours." He goes, "We're the 10th busiest restaurant." She goes, "I don't care." And about 2 minutes later, we were seated, and
you had a table.
Had a table. Yeah, and then one person in my party, Montgomery Inn is for ribs, so you go there and eat ribs. Ordered pork chops, and it was not until we sat down after 4 hours did we discover that this particular person did not like ribs, and so we're like, we could have gone to Chili's, and saved us 3.5 hours. So,
oh my goodness! I used to tell my youth on a road trip, so we would travel places for ski trips or mission trips or things like that, and they constantly, how much longer, how much farther? I mean, we wouldn't be 10 minutes out of the church and they'd be asking. My standard answer was 15 more minutes. And they would be quiet. And like 3 hours later, they'd go, "Hey, Carol, how much further?" 15 more minutes. And about 12 hours into the trip, they'd say, "That's what you said last time." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm going to keep saying it too. Yeah.
It's sort of like when the Bible says 40 years, that's just code for as long as it takes. Yeah.
till we're there. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh,
I
waiting
love it.
implies that we're held within the bounds of time,
Hmm.
you know, and so it kind of shows that we are finite and we're not in complete control. It's a
Right.
shock.
Right.
I mean, it's a shock
Yeah.
that we're not in control, isn't it?
Yeah. We sure try to be,
We,
or I sure try to be.
I,
Maybe
I
I should
think,
say that.
yeah, I think we
Hmm.
feel better if we feel like we're in control, but there's sometimes we're just simply not in control. And waiting is one of those that helps us to kind of realize that. And in a way, it's a way that kind of settles us into our place and shows us, you know, how we who we have to depend on. Absolutely. Waiting is also about being attentive. You probably took long car trips.
Oh, I mean, we lived away from family. So when we moved to Montana, my parents' family, both my dad's family and my mom's family, who all lived in Oklahoma, thought my father was moving us to like another country. So yes, to dad would wake us up at 3 a.m. and load us into the car to head out when we would head back to Oklahoma for trips. And
Yeah.
we drove all the time.
Now, if you were under the age of 30, what I'm about to say is going to absolutely just crush your spirit. But there was a day when we all had station wagons,
Mm-hmm.
which was basically a truck that was covered. And we would put pallets in the back and basically just hang out there sleeping the whole
Yep.
time if we were on a
Playing
car.
cards. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
seat belts. Then it was not a good
Nope.
day. It
Yeah.
was we by the grace of God we're here. But there was a strategy that a lot of times us kids would use, which is if you went to sleep, then you could just wake up and you'd at least be maybe an hour or 2 hours closer to wherever you're going. And if you really slept well, I mean, you could sleep the whole trip and basically avoid all that waiting and all that downtime.
There was a year I returned from church camp on Friday night or whatever it was. My mom did laundry. We packed things up and we left Saturday morning, I think at 3 a.m. And I'm pretty sure I slept till we got to Oklahoma. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. And it was great because then, hey, we're there and I'm rested.
Yeah. It's
So,
already done, but you
yeah,
missed the trip.
I
you
did.
you
I did
you
miss the trip.
you miss anything on the trip, and I wonder if that's sometimes our strategy for getting through life
Mm,
is to put our head
mm,
down and to just focus on the end, and let's just numb ourselves. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, let's numb ourselves and
yeah.
and not really focus on anything, and just know that at some point we're going to get to the end, whatever is there worth it, the wait. And we missed the whole trip. We missed the journey through life, and we missed the relationship with Jesus. We say life is better with Jesus, not just after we die, but
Right.
while we're on
But
this.
during,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, as you said that, it made me think of back when we used to get newspapers delivered to the house and there would be advice columnists.
Mhm.
And I can remember my mom cutting one out one year and giving it to me. It was a Dear Ann Landers. And it was something about not don't miss the journey for the destination. Like you're so obsessed with the destination and the end goal, and you miss out on so much of what happens between your starting point and the destination. And I don't remember everything she said, but I will always remember my mom giving me that to say, you're going to have bumps on the road and turns and changes, but it's worth the journey.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what this is, right? That we know that if we just sleep through it or numb ourselves or anything else, we miss out on a whole lot of life with Christ if we do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Or if we try to manufacture and speed up things,
Oh yeah,
um, that's never been a recipe for anything but heartache for me when I've tried to manufacture or microwave things, and not wait for
yeah,
God's timing. Um,
absolutely.
so I I mean, we're talking about waiting, and I just wonder if the Bible gives us any. Any, I
Maybe.
mean, does the Bible talk about waiting? Did anyone wait in the Bible? I mean, is that,
Maybe a few
let's,
people. I think from the very beginning of time, just about, right? I mean,
yeah,
goodness, you start with Abraham and Sarah,
yeah.
and they waited and they waited and they waited, and for their son, 90 years. I mean, that doesn't make sense to us today that a woman in her 90s would give birth to her firstborn, and we don't understand that, and yet they waited for that promise that God had given them from way before, from decades before, right? Like not just a few years earlier, it was decades.
And I think that's what goes often unappreciated is that we think of those stories like Abraham and Sarah, or I mean King David. King David was anointed by Samuel, but it was, I mean,
Yeah, he
he
was
had
a
to,
kid. He was a
he was a
kid when he was
kid.
anointed. Yeah.
It's exactly right. And what happened in the meantime is A, he had to wait, and B, one of the brothers. B, he ends up being chased by Saul and kind of run out of the kingdom that he was
Mhm.
promised to take over. And I mean, it was not an easy journey for him to wait.
No, no.
Any over and under about how long the Israelites waited in Egypt to get out?
Ah, goodness, if it wasn't in my notes in front of me, I mean, I could have said a couple of centuries, but
Yeah.
430 years,
That's 10 plus generations of people.
that's insane.
That is
I
insane.
don't think I could. I was trying to think if I could look back on my genealogy. And I mean, we have some family members that have worked very diligently on some of our genealogy, but I'm thinking maybe like 3 or 4 generations,
Mhm.
10 generations.
10 generations.
And that
Yeah.
they didn't give up. I think
Yeah.
that's that they waited on God's promise that long. They continued, I mean, which we're going to get to this, but they continued to tell the story
Yeah.
of what they
Yeah.
knew would happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And their season of waiting, I think is going to be really instructive about how we wait. Because it's very similar to the exile. I mean, the exile in
Mm-hmm.
Babylon, I mean, 70 years, I mean, that was just a blip in time. That's two
Yeah.
generations. I mean, that was nothing compared to 430. But then we get to the intertestamental time between the close of the Old Testament and then Jesus. We have another 3 to 4 centuries of there's no word from God. And so how does a people continue to wait? Not just individuals, but how do people continue to wait? And I think what we
Yeah.
see is that a huge piece, there's really 3 pieces that at least come out, and that is they were actively remembering God's
Mm-hmm.
promises. They were actively listening. And I love the all the prophets in the exile, are writing. So you've got the Jeremiahs and the Ezekiels that are just that they're just giving hope and promise, and here's what's going on, and oh well, and here's judgment, and here's how you can understand it. But they were constantly discerning what is God
Mm-hmm.
doing, and what, and then they were actually doing, they were practically involved in things um, that helped them kind of through this period of time to wait and wait well. Today we want to talk about remembering because we think that that's a huge piece of how we
Yeah.
wait well. So what are some of the pieces of remembering, Carol, that will help
Yeah.
us?
So for me, I think remembering is continuing to tell the story. Tell your story, tell your family story, tell the story of God's faithfulness from times before when you've waited, or how God's been faithful even as you wait, right? I mean, that's that's how we even know all of this in our biblical narrative, because the stories were passed down. I think of those 430 years in exile, the story continued to be passed down, and so that's how we ended up with it. And if not, if they had just let that story go, and we're a part of God's story too, right? I mean,
Mhm.
everything that is happening is we are a part of God's grand narrative and the beauty of that. And so we have to pass those down. And so I think one of the things during Advent is find time to share your story with somebody,
Mm.
with
Yeah.
family, whether if you don't, I don't, some people like to, you're a journaler. You like to
I
journal, Todd.
am.
I
Yeah.
used to be a journaler. I used to really love to journal and I've kind of gotten out of the habit. And lately I've been thinking maybe this Advent is my turn to pick it back up. And to jot those things down and um, to remember God's faithfulness in my life and in my family's life and interview a family member, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Great
how
idea.
amazing would that be just to talk to one of your family members about where they've seen God be faithful in their life and write it down for future generations.
You have a very cool story about your great great grandfather.
I do.
And it
Yeah.
just recently you were able to retell that story, and you've told it a
I
couple times around the office, and just tell everybody
sure.
listening, it's such a
So
cool
yeah,
story.
I do love this. My great great grandfather was a circuit rider in Oklahoma and North Texas. But before that, he and his cousin stole some horses and got into trouble. And of course, they were on the run, and he was probably 16, 17 years old, maybe
Mm.
eight, young. He was still a kid. And the people they stole the horses with caught up to him one night. And his cousin said he wouldn't be taken alive, and he got his wish. They killed him on the spot.
Wow.
And my great great grandfather, Price Beauregard Hicks, what a name.
That's a
Um,
classic name right
I know.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strong.
Um, I know. He said, "You're right, I did wrong." And he was locked up for 5 years. He was arrested. And it wasn't, I don't think any prison life is easy, but it was hard labor prison life. And when he got out, he met his future wife. And her mother said to him, his mother in law said to him, "You are called to share the love of God."
Mm.
And he became a Methodist circuit rider and went about, the frontier, the Oklahoma, Texas frontier, and shared the love of God with people. And there's a story that years later there was a bank robbery going on, and he went in there to talk to the people, went in unarmed. And nobody knows for sure what he said, but his life was so drastically changed by the love of Christ and by a community of people seeing in him the good, that he went in and talked to those people and said, "You've made a mistake, you screwed up, you got to surrender, but the love of Christ is for you too." And I was just the end of October, so his statue is one of his great nieces, I believe, was an artist and had a statue made of him, and it's on the campus of Oklahoma City University as the pioneer preacher. And I was in Oklahoma with my small group that I used to be a part of, and we went by to take a picture at it. And they were doing a tour, a college campus tour of OCU, and this group went by. Now, OCU is a liberal arts college. It has a branch of ministry as a part of it, but is not a Christian college per se. And I had an opportunity to share that story with this group of people because nobody knew who this man was and why his statue is on this campus.
Some random statue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's just this
Yeah.
random pic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought afterwards, I have no clue what all those, these 25 people in this tour, I don't know what their story is. And yet I was able to share the gospel, and I didn't even stop and think about it. I just shared that he had,
Just poured out of
yeah,
your heart.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with a few tears.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I'm
that's
sure.
surprising.
No, it's not shocking to me, but
So,
maybe some of
yeah.
our listeners it is, but no, not to me. But what the beautiful thing to me is you've connected in a way through that story for your whole life, and here it
Yeah.
is, at age 40 whatever, and
Yeah.
it is still absolutely forming you and giving you hope and helping you through difficult days. I mean, that's the
And
beauty
there
of it.
are there are numerous of his descendants, of second cousins of mine in ministry, and I think
Yeah.
if his life hadn't changed, where would our lives be
Where would
now?
the kingdom be? Where would the kingdom
Right.
be? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why it is so important that we do. We retell the scripture story, sure. And
Yeah.
we point out places that God's been at work in our lives. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be the heroic story. Sometimes it can be the
Mhm.
real gentle, ordinary thing that
Yeah.
completely brings us life, and we just keep remembering it. And that's one of the ways that we're able to wait and
Yes.
to be very present. um, I think gratitude and counting our blessings, if there is a thermometer about how hot or cold our faith is, I think it is gratitude and being able to stop and give thanks for things. And so I would just forward that as another wonderful way. Partly you're
Yes.
retelling a story that you're remembering, whether it's long in the past or current, but you are stopping to say, Lord, you did this.
Hmm.
This major thing you did, or you did this thing that no one else is going to ever notice, but has made a difference in my life. And I think to do that every day and begins to build up just a wellspring of of ability to hope and to wait,
Mm.
because we're constantly
Yeah.
seeing what God's doing. We're constantly being like, oh yeah, that's God's still here, God's still working.
Well,
and
and when
and
we
so,
do that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, you're fine.
When we do that, though, I think we start looking for where God's working even
Mhm.
more because
Yeah,
we want to know what we're going to give thanks for that night. And so a day that is just horrible. I mean, like I think Alexander and the No Good, Horrible, whatever that kid's book
yeah,
was, right? There are days that are just awful, terrible, horrible days. And yet there will be a moment in that day where you saw God at work because you're looking for that moment to be grateful and that moment for gratitude. And so, I mean, it's a God sighting, and we start looking for those. Maybe it's in the smile of the checkout lady at Kroger, and that's exactly what you needed. And on another day, you wouldn't have even noticed because you weren't looking for God's work. And yet, the more you start ending your day with gratitude and looking for that, you start looking for it from the moment you wake up. And I think that is such an active way to wait and watch for God's goodness in your life.
I could not agree more. I think all of these are not just nice things to do, but they are necessary things to do
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
order to be a people who wait really well. If I'm at a restaurant and it's me alone waiting for an hour, well, I don't know, maybe that would be fun. But
Yes.
if I have great
For the
company, or
introvert.
yeah, I
Yeah.
have that great company around me, and we're enjoying our time together, that hour goes quickly. And I think that's one of the great calls to community, and to be able to to be with one another and sharing is, again, what God has done and where that has. And if you're, if you're part of First United Methodist Church and you haven't found a Sunday school yet, let me just say
Let me help you.
it's time, and we would love to help you do that, because there's just no better place to be able to build up some ability to wait and wait well, than being among a group of people. I think lots of things, directions we can go, but we just wanted you to have a few things that you could take away and say, hey, I can put these into practice. Find somebody to have a conversation with. And usually it's easy if you'll ask them their story, and
Yeah.
then you get to share yours. Let me just share a little strategy in terms of, of that. But ask good questions about, what this has meant, and what an event meant in their life, or something that was important, and listen to how God has done that. Gratitude journal, to be able to, even for 30 days or 45 days, whatever the
Yeah.
season is, just to be intentional about it. And what I found is that after you do it for a little bit of time, you can't not do it.
Yeah. You want to keep it up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You just do keep it up. You don't even have to try anymore. It's like, oh, I here's the things I saw yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, whatever it is, we wait and we believe that God has given us keys to waiting well. And if we wait well, we will actually be given even more of God's fulfillment in our lives.
Amen.
Waiting involves being present, right? I mean, I think of Christmas and Advent and presents, but it involves being present with what is happening in and around us. There's no better time to be present than Advent. And I was looking through, I have several Advent books. I was looking through one recently by Scott Erickson, and he talks about being present with the glorious now. And I love that. I just
That is
think,
great.
Okay, God, let me be present with the glorious now. And so that's my prayer for all of us this Advent.
Yeah. We're so grateful for you being part of this journey. And hopefully you're catching us on Sundays. And hopefully it'll be worth your time for the sermon series, Worth Your Wait.
Worth the wait.
Worth the wait. And some how to wait, some things us to take and implement in our lives. Next time we get together, we're going to talk about how listening is an important part of waiting. And we're going to be talking about how do we discern God's will in our lives, and that's going to be real important. And then we're going to conclude with doing. So all of you that don't like to sit any length of time, know that we're going to get there. And the third episode will all be about doing. What are the actions that we can take that help us to wait? In the meantime, I just pray that everybody has a great Advent season as we await what God has for us and what God is doing through us. I hope you'll join us again. Bye, Carol.
Bye.